Well, hi there. Hello, mom friends. It's Karen Haley, the digestive coach for moms over at Karen Haley's Gut Love, where it's all about quieting your gut struggles, moving beyond medicine so that you can be the mom you always dreamed you'd be. Can I get a whoop whoop for that? And I'm here with my little poop friend, Poopy, I guess his name is. And I'm here for another Gut Love Live session. But not just any Gut Love Live session. I'm so excited about this particular one because it's a special event. It is the very first Q&A book giveaway. Yeah, I gotta pat myself on the back because I actually came up with that myself. It's the Q&A book giveaway. And what the heck is that, you might want to know? Well, it's exactly as it sounds. It's part Q&A, part book giveaway. So what I did is, on Facebook and social media this week, I asked you, what are your top gut health questions? What are those burning questions that you want to know, especially when it comes to IBD, especially when it comes to having inflammatory bowel disease like so many moms in the Gut Love community. And so I asked you what your questions were, and you guys let it pour. I'm so thrilled with the amazing questions that you asked, and it just got my juices flowing. It got me really excited to talk about this topic with you. And I also said that it's not just a Q&A, it's a Q&A book giveaway. So the book giveaway part is that we're also giving a book away. So excited about this too. Where is my book? Here it is. It's this book right here. I'm hoping that you're seeing that and it's not backwards. I think you can see it. Okay, so this is a great book. I read it and I knew that it had to be part of this first Q&A book giveaway because I loved it, and I think it's going to be really helpful for anybody struggling with IBD. It's called Managing IBD, A Balanced Guide to Inflammatory Bowel Disease. It's by Jenna Farmer. She has IBD herself, and she wrote this fabulous book. The thing that I love most about this book is, sometimes with these kinds of books, what you see is, this is exactly what you should do. And if you're not doing it this way, you're doing it wrong, right? But when I read this book, and I read it quick, see, it's not too thick. You could read this pretty quickly. When I read this book, I love that she shows all kinds of approaches, all kinds of different things you might want to try. And the reason I love that so much is because we're all different. Even though we might all have IBD, we're all completely different. We all heal differently. And my computer's acting funky here, so hold on. Okay, I think I'm okay. So she shows you in this book the different ways, the different methods, the different things you might want to try, from supplements to talking about how to manage being at the hospital to just the illness and, the overview if you're just new to being diagnosed. She talks about several different food approaches that you can use. So anyway, I'm a raving fan. I love this book, and I knew I had to use it in the Q&A book giveaway. So at the end of this video, I'll be giving away this book to one lucky mom that wrote in a question. So I have my little, I put everybody that wrote a question in this little bag here. This is my 7-year-old's little magic bag. If you have kids, you may have seen this. So I put everybody's names in here. This is like my little hat, so to speak. And so I put everybody's names in here. And so at the end, I'll be pulling one of these live, and then that person will get this book. So let's start the Q&A. All right, so I was looking at these questions a couple hours ago, and let me tell you, if you're here, please say hi. I'm gonna go ahead and refresh my feed, because if you have any questions beyond what we're talking about today, I want you to be able to pop them in the comments. So I'm gonna refresh. I'm on my phone for the video, but I also have my computer here. So let me just refresh it and make sure that this is working. But if you are on live, and I see there's at least one person on live, say hi. I would love to chat with you. All right, let's see. Okay, still scrolling down. No. Not working for me. Okay, but I should see comments if they come up in my phone. I'm going to try refreshing my computer one more time, and if that doesn't work, we'll just forget it. But anyway, so as I was this afternoon, as I was just getting together the questions to try and read them over ahead of time, something really interesting struck me. And here's what it is. So many of the questions had not to do with the physical part of Crohn's disease or colitis. It had to do with the emotional component that goes along with it, the psychological issues, the mental health issues like depression and anxiety, and also something else that's not really IBD or even food related, but sleep. And so as I was reading those questions, something that really occurred to me was this. My husband is a health psychologist, and I knew that he would be able to give us some input and some insight in some of these more psychological minded issues. So I invited him to join us in the Gut Love Live sesh tonight. So he's over here, he's waiting in the wings. I have to tell you guys that I haven't told him what any of these questions are ahead of time. So we're going to kind of blow his mind here, and we're going to be patient with him because he's never done a Facebook Live before, and he doesn't know what these questions are. So we're going to go easy on him, and we'll see how we do. I think the two of us will just kind of talk about the questions together. Something that you might not know about me is that I also have a degree in psychology. My master's is in counseling. So when these psychology-minded questions came in, I loved that. That was really exciting for me. So between the two of us, him being a psychologist, me having a mental health counseling background as well, I think we can help tackle these questions. So come on in, hubby. I'm going to move over and make room for him, and hopefully we can both fit here. This is my husband. This is my better half. This is Bill.
Hi.
And so he's going to join us for some of the questions. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. I was told like 5 minutes ago that I would be joining you, so I've prepared like 5 minutes worth of information.
Okay.
And I know that you said we should try to keep this to pretty short, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I said I guess I'm going to be taking over the entire Facebook Live tonight because if you get me started talking about sleep.
And we're going to talk about sleep.
Okay.
Oh, and one other thing that I think that the two of us have to mention is that we have 3 kids, and they're all running about.
I was just out there.
In the house.
They're still alive.
And so the house might be burning down. I don't know what's going on. So if you hear screaming and yelling, then probably one of us will have to leave and take care of that.
Right.
We'll just see how it goes. We just kind of said, go fend for yourselves, and we'll be back.
What are the questions?
Yeah, we'll see. Okay. All right. So here's the first question. So I'm going to have Bill sit around, hang out with us for the questions that are really more psychology minded, because I thought it'd be really beneficial to get a health psychologist point of view here. All right. So the first question comes from, and I have my notes here with the questions, and I just wrote some notes down of things that I wanted to make sure that I said as well. So if you see me looking down, that's why. Okay, so here's the first one, and it comes from Come Thrive with Emma. So thank you, Come Thrive with Emma, for giving us a question.
I'm going to scoot over closer.
Okay.
Don't leave.
Oh, don't me leave. Okay, here we go. All right. She says, and I'm going to paraphrase here because her question is a little long, so I'm just going to paraphrase. She has, I don't think she says if she has Crohn's. Oh, she says she has IBD, IBS, depending on where you are, because depending on where you live, it could be IBD or IBS, but to me, it sounds like she has IBD. I just had the worst flare-up of my life. I'm getting close to 30 years, and it's taken a toll on my bowels. My question, among many, she says, her most recent episode has forced her to get over her embarrassment and stigma behind bowel problems with her boyfriend. And you know what, she says? He was supportive, and he doesn't even care or judge me. Who knew? I'm starting to come to terms with it. How do you deal with the psychological side of this, or the fear of being away from the bathroom, being in a car when you need to go to the bathroom, or at work? So that's her question. And so this is a question I think no matter whether you asked it or not, everybody can relate to. I know for sure that I can relate to this question, right? Yep. And here's the thing. It is really tough. I'm not going to downplay this at all. It actually is, it's really tough, you know, to deal with this. And I think actually this is a really good question to have Bill here for, because when I was kind of in the throes of active disease, right, that's when we first met.
That's right.
In fact, I had surgery to remove about 10 feet of my small intestine about 4 months after we met.
Right. So one of our very early dates was in the hospital, and was waiting around for her to have what we called wind in the tunnel, so that could be when she was allowed to leave the hospital, right? Yeah. So that was one of our first dates, was waiting around for her to pass gas.
I totally forgot about that. That's really funny, but that's so true.
It's a great start to a long romance.
And so, you know, if you have a significant other that can wait around with you for wind in the tunnel, they're probably a keeper. But here's the thing. I've seen, you know, and even Bill and I, in our early days of being married, we ran a support group for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. Do you remember that?
Yep.
When we lived in South Carolina. And I remember people that said, I would love to be part of this group, but I can't come because I can't leave the house. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And so this can be so debilitating when you're worried that where am I going to be when I have to go to the bathroom? And so it's not unheard of for people to become shut-ins in their house because they're worried, what am I going to do?
Yep.
Right? And so I think the key for me, and I've had this for 30 years, and I know because I remember the embarrassment of all of that. I'm going to move you into the shot.
Nope.
I remember the embarrassment of all that, but I think time, right? I needed to come to terms with it myself over time.
Yeah.
I needed to be comfortable with it myself before I could talk with it about you.
Right.
Or with anybody, really anybody. I think I spent... Well, I got diagnosed right before I went to college, and I don't think I told anybody in college. It wasn't until I was in graduate school that I started to actually talk about it. And so I had to get comfortable with it myself before I could tell people about it. And when I knew that Bill was the guy for me, and we've been married over 20 years, was when I could talk to him about it, and I wasn't embarrassed about talking to him about it. And so I think it takes time, you know. But for you, I would say with your boyfriend, I'm so glad that he's really supportive. That's awesome. And I would just be really upfront and honest from the get-go. I would do that. When you're comfortable with it yourself, then you can be honest with him or her right from the beginning. And if that's a struggle for you, then I would say therapy is great. I'm a huge proponent of therapy. And I remember when I was first diagnosed, my mom hooked me up with actually a hypnotherapist of all things. Yeah, when I was in high school with the hypnotherapist. And actually it was really helpful for me to start to come to terms with the fact that I might have those embarrassing situations where I might have to say, yeah, I have to use the bathroom or that kind of thing.
Well, if nothing else, it probably also gave you an opportunity to practice talking about it. And I think that's the main thing for me, is that if you force yourself initially to start talking about it, it gets easier each time, and it seems really awfully awkward. I mean, I was brought up, we didn't even, we were like, oh, are you going to go number 1 or number 2? I mean, I was not brought up in talking about it. So by talking about it more and more often, and if you do have your boyfriend is comfortable with you talking about it, then it's on you to then practice talking about it. And since you have a safe environment, I think each time you do it, it gets a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it is really hard.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. I mean, it is really hard. So I understand. I think that I love that question because I think it could come from any one of us with IBD. Because it's just so common. So coming to terms with it yourself, and then getting support if you're not comfortable with it. And I did mention therapy, but I also wanted to mention things like meditation. I think that can be really helpful. And then having that support system. Having a wonderful spouse is awesome, but connecting with other people that also understand what it's like, I think that's really key too. The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, I know I definitely got support there. I found friends online that also have IBD, so sharing with other people that have it as well. So,
and another thing that comes up too is that anxiety comes and goes. So like you might start feeling comfortable about it, and then you feel anxious again later. Maybe you've been comfortable for a while, and maybe the symptoms haven't been so bad for a while, and then they come back, and then you start with that anxiety again. And one way to think about it is that when you feel anxious about talking about bowel movements or your symptoms, that's actually, think about that anxiety as a cue that you should be talking about it, as opposed to a cue that you should be afraid of talking about it, because it a lot of times it is the first sign that, hey, something's going on, I'm not comfortable talking about it. That's your cue to actually force yourself to go out and talk about it, because avoiding it is just going to make it get worse.
Well, yeah, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, exactly. Right? It just keeps continuing, and then what happens is you get more anxious about it and more anxious about it. But when you just have that little bit of anxiety and you push through it, then that's when you can take that step forward, I think. Yeah. I love that question. Anything else you want to say?
Perfect.
Great question. I think that's good. Okay. Thank you so much for that question.
That's got to be one of the most common
100%.
that people have.
That's why I wanted to start with that, because I feel like a lot of people have that question, right?
Yeah. I mean,
she asked it, but a lot of people have it.
I mean, and people spend their whole life mapping out when they want to go somewhere, mapping out every bathroom between where their home is and where they want to go to figure out. I mean, that's maybe part of reality that you have to do that right now, but being able to talk with folks and let them know, I might be late and this is why. Yeah. It's probably the best way to go.
It happens, and unfortunately when we have IBD, we have to deal with it, so we just have to push through it.
Right.
Yeah. I'm so grateful, though, that you have a supportive, significant other. I think that's awesome. Right. Yeah. I knew when there was the wind issue, but really when we were at the hospital together and I knew that I could talk with Bill about that, I knew he was the keeper. So it's great that you have that person.
And if you make it fun, just tell your boyfriend, wind in the tunnel. That should be the key word.
Yeah, you can make fun of it, right?
It's almost like a song. Laugh about it. The wind beneath your wings or something.
Beneath my tunnel. I don't know. All right, we're going to move on to the next question that I would love Bill's input on. Besides being a health psychologist, Bill is also I'm going to embarrass him here, but he's a world-renowned sleep expert. So here's a question about sleep, and so I thought that this would be a great one for him to join us on. Okay, this question comes from Made by Leslie Renee. Okay, and she says, I'd love to read this. She's talking about the book. And so then her question is, besides diet, I so gave this away. I'm terrible at this. Anyway, I gave it away. I gave away my answer. Here we go. My number one question besides diet is, what's the number one thing you recommend for a healthy gut besides diet? I totally messed this question up because I wanted to be like, drum roll, and my drum rolls suck. But anyway, I vacillate here because some days I feel like sleep is actually more important than the food you eat. I know that's huge, coming from a health coach, but sleep is huge.
Yeah.
Your sleep is huge. And I know just from my, I'm not a sleep expert, but just from my experience with sleep and your gut, you're actually restoring your organs, including your gut, while you're sleeping. And there's these hours between 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., especially for your gut, where there is restoration and healing taking place. And so if you're not getting to sleep at those times, then how can you heal your gut?
Right.
And so to answer your question, I feel like the number one thing, including food, for me, when I talk to clients, is sleep. Yeah. And I know you feel like sleep is really important too. The thing that I hear from my clients, though, is that we know sleep is important, right? And I'm sure you hear that as well.
All the time.
I know sleep is important. But and I only work with moms, right? So you know what mom life is like because you're living dad life, right?
Yep.
And so it's really hard when there's so many things to do. And for me, I find that quiet time when the kids go to bed is actually kind of addictive for me because it's the only time the house is quiet.
Right.
And so my question for you about this is, like, how do you do this? How do you make it a priority? How do you get more sleep when you know it's so important for your gut, but you also just, you need those extra hours in the day?
Right. Yeah, and it's really interesting because the literature in the sleep world is just like exploding right now, and it has been for the last 10 years maybe, but really focused on the genome and sleep, but even probably more importantly, the microbiome and sleep, the even larger microbiome and sleep. And so there's been a lot of research recently in this area looking at the relationship between the gut and the brain, and particularly related to sleep. And this is where I said, she did kind of give me a little bit of a hint about maybe I would talk about sleep. And this is why I said, okay, do you have 2 or 4 hours? Because I have the 2-hour version and the 4-hour version.
Right.
So I thought maybe I would just pick one thing.
Okay.
To talk about, and that's the circadian rhythm, which is kind of what you're alluding to, because a lot of people have heard of the circadian rhythm,
right.
and it's a 24-hour cycle roughly, and sleep is regulated in part on this circadian rhythm. We typically sleep during the nighttime, and we're awake during the day, and we have consolidated periods of sleep and wake, and that's all regulated by this circadian rhythm. And the circadian rhythm is, again, in your brain, and there's a part of your brain, the hypothalamus, in particular the suprachiasmatic nuclei, and you think of that, I know, SCN, I don't know, that's it.
That's a new one on me.
And that's like the master clock for your circadian rhythm, and the main thing that regulates that is bright light. But there's also what they call peripheral oscillators or peripheral circadian oscillators all through the body that inform that master. Think of them like little clocks that are constantly resetting the master clock.
Okay.
And a lot of those are in the gut, right? And inform, so the gut is informing the suprachiasmatic nuclei, the brain, the master clock, to reset that circadian rhythm, right? So the gut is informing the sleep, right? But it's a two-way street, and sleep also helps the gut as well. The gut, a lot of people probably know that most of this body's serotonin, which is I think some people call it the happy neurochemical or whatever. Serotonin, most of it is in the gut.
Yeah.
What's really interesting that most people don't necessarily know is serotonin is a precursor to melatonin. In other words, melatonin is made in large part from serotonin. And melatonin plays an important role in how we sleep at night, how well we sleep, and turning off that suprachiasmatic nuclei that's telling us to be awake. And so having the gut healthy is important to good sleep, and having good sleep is important to good gut health. So it's a kind of a two-way street. The most important thing that you can do with regard to the circadian rhythm is have a consistent bed and wake time, right? So most people these days, like you were saying, with a fast-paced life, some nights you've got soccer and this and recitals and that, and so you go to bed late, you don't eat dinner until 9 o'clock at night, you don't want to go right to bed, so you stay awake until 11 or 12.
Well.
And then the next night you're exhausted, so you go to bed at 7 or 8, and then on the weekends you stay up until 1 or 2 at night, drinking Red Bull and vodka, woo, partying or whatever.
We would never do that
when you're younger. Anyway, I don't know why Red Bull and vodka, but it seems like a popular drink. It's like all it is a wide awake drunk person. So anyway, and so you stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning, and then you sleep until noon on Saturday and Sunday, and then you try and go back, and you're what we call social jet lag. It's like basically flying yourself to Europe and back every weekend, and that disrupts
the
biome. There's actually a study published recently that looked at people traveling across, I think it was 8 time zones, and they could see the disruption in their biome.
Oh my gosh!
Until they got adjusted to that new time zone.
Wow!
But if you think about some nights going to bed at 10 and some nights going to bed at 2, that's like 4 hours of 4 time zones.
It's like you travel 4 time zones.
Right. So you're constantly doing that to your gut flora, by jet lagging yourself essentially. And so one of the most important things people can do to have good sleep health, which will result in better gut health, is to have a consistent bed and wake time. And if you want to vary a little bit on the weekends, that's understandable. Go to bed a little bit later and sleep in a little bit later. But having that consistent bed and wake time is like the main thing I tell folks. It's going to help with that circadian rhythm. And that circadian rhythm, you had mentioned, that's between 10 and 2.
Yeah.
The stuff that's regulated on the circadian rhythm includes growth hormone. A lot of things go on almost exclusively during that period of time when we're supposed to be sleeping, right? Like melatonin is helping us to stay asleep. You've got growth hormone, protein synthesis. All these things are happening primarily or exclusively when we're asleep, regulated by the circadian rhythm. So that's why that circadian rhythm and keeping that properly entrained circadian rhythm, I think, is really important to people that have gut concerns in particular. So that's probably the main thing I would talk about. Now, when you talk about kind of sleep deprivation, that's probably the number one thing that people are doing to hurt their gut health. We know that sleep deprivation, I mean, if it was like putting your hand on a stove and getting burned like that, like instantly you know something's wrong, we would never do what we do to ourselves all the time with sleep deprivation. But the consequences are delayed, right? But it's clear that depriving yourself of sleep leads to metabolic conditions, leads to obesity. The correlation is clear. Leads to obesity, leads to type 2 diabetes and other metabolic conditions by consistently having chronic sleep deprivation. So for people that have gut health problems, getting enough sleep needs to be a priority. You think you're just cheating yourself one night, but if you have chronic sleep deprivation, then you're actually cheating yourself in the long run.
And that's
really
why I kind of, sorry to interrupt you, that's why I kind of go back and forth between, is eating right more important than sleep? Because I feel like sleep is huge. I guess I feel like they're equally important.
Right.
And I think a lot of people would put food first and not think about the sleep.
Probably.
But I think that sleep, like when we're talking about gut health, we have to talk about sleep hygiene as well. Huge. Yeah.
I mean, I'm biased towards thinking sleep is important. I mean, if you think about, every single organism from a single-celled protoplasm, box jellyfish that have been around for 700 million years, they all have distinct periods of rest, and that has not changed as we've evolved, even as much as the gut has changed and as we've evolved. And so there will never be a time when we're without the need for sleep. And getting good sleep, I think, is a key ingredient to good gut health. It's a two-way street, but I think it's important. Yeah,
I think definitely the answer to this question, without a doubt, besides food, sleep. Sleep, 100%.
You have to eat.
You have to eat.
And you have to sleep.
Do you have time to hang out for one more question?
Sure.
I have one more. Okay. There was one more question that I thought that you would be good to answer. I think this is it right here. Okay. How we doing? If you're hanging out with us, say hi. We'd love to hear from you. Yes, did we put you to sleep? We'll try not to go beyond 10, right? Because we want you to get to sleep. Okay, so this is a question from Claire Bear 19826.
Oh,
yes.
19826, yeah.
Yes. Not 19825, 19826, Claire Bear. Okay, hey, Claire Bear, hi. Thanks so much for submitting a question. So here's your question. I have Crohn's. How does my gut health impact my mood, like depression and anxiety? And then she has a second part to this. What is the single best thing food-wise I can do about that? And then Claire Bear also wants us to know that she's a vegetarian. So when I answer that question, I'm going to keep in mind that she's a vegetarian as well. So how does Crohn's affect your mood is basically her question. And so I could go on about this topic for so long. Okay, here we go. We actually don't just have one brain. We have two. In fact, my 7-year-old goes to his elementary school and constantly, I've heard this from the teacher, constantly tells the teacher, I know we have two brains, and this is where my second brain is, right? And she's looking at him like, are you crazy, right? Because most people don't go around talking like this.
No.
Right. But you actually do. You have two brains. You have the brain in your head and you have the brain in your gut. It's considered your second brain because it actually has more nerve endings than your brain. More nerve endings in your gut than in your brain. And the thing that connects these things is this awesome nerve, this neural pathway called the vagus nerve. It starts at the back of your spine and it goes all the way down your spinal column and it goes through your digestive system. So no wonder your brain and your gut are connected. Now, if you've heard of a very wise man called Hippocrates, you've heard my other favorite saying, and that's all disease begins in the gut. And that all disease begins in the gut comment is true for mood disorders as well. So your anxiety, your depression, it all begins in the gut because of this first brain, second brain connection. It's all connected. So if your gut is not healthy, right? If we have Crohn's disease, if we have colitis, then let me tell you, your gut is not healthy, right? If you're in flare mode, especially, your gut is not healthy, and that's going to affect your mood. It's going to affect you. So it can absolutely 100% cause you to have mood swings that feel like depression, that feel like anxiety, and you can even be diagnosed with those kinds of things, and it can all start in your gut. Now, the other piece to that I want to bring Bill on in here is the fact that, I'm going to refresh my screen here, is the fact that when we have Crohn's disease, when we have colitis, when we have IBD or IBS, or even just chronic gut issues, the sheer fact of just having those can cause anxiety and depression. Right? So it's like the chicken or the egg. I mean, I don't really know what came first. It doesn't really matter what came first. But for sure, if you have Crohn's or colitis, and you're like our first question, where you're thinking about where am I going to go to the bathroom all the time, and how can I tell my significant other about this, that certainly can cause anxiety and depression, don't you think?
Absolutely. And it's again, I think it's another two-way street. Remember earlier we were talking about sleep, we talked about serotonin, and a lot of people may be familiar with antidepressant medications like SSRIs or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And those work in the brain, this brain, in your head. And what they do is, the key is kind of in the word, SSR, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, right? Basically what those medications do are they block the uptake of serotonin so that more of it's available in the synapses in your brain, and that serotonin again is kind of one of the happy neurochemicals, right? But if you think about it, what that's doing is that you don't have enough serotonin in your brain, and so these medications inhibit the reuptake of it so that more of it's in there. And the reason why your brain does not have enough serotonin is because your gut's not making it. Remember we talked about serotonin being a precursor for melatonin. Well, tryptophan, an amino acid, is a precursor of serotonin. Serotonin is made by our gut. Now it's available for the brain for the happiness in other things, and sleep regulation among other things. But it starts with being made in the gut. So again, if you have a healthy gut, you're less likely to have a deficiency of serotonin, which is then leads you to take these medications that help make more serotonin available. It doesn't make serotonin, it just keeps your body from reabsorbing it, so it's there. Anyway, so that's one way it works. But the other way back down is that when you're stressed, and just think of depression or anxiety as a kind of stressor. Like you had mentioned, you've got all these stressors in your life. Where am I going to go to the bathroom? I've just been given this horrible life-altering diagnosis and those kinds of things. All those, think of them as stressors. And stressors can result in cortisol being made in the brain, and that can also have a detrimental effect on the gut flora and the microbiome, and can suppress then the development of serotonin, tryptophan, GABA, which I'm not going to say that one, and all those amino acids that help to develop the serotonin and to help keep our mood up and keep our mood elevated and manage our ability to handle stress and deal with it. So
we had a comment from Leslie. She says, "Oh my, so eye-opening for me." So glad, Leslie. That's awesome. Yeah. When he talks, it's eye-opening for me too. I love it. I love it when he gets going.
We should do this every night.
Anyway, yes. Yeah. I mean, but 100%, I don't know if you would call it a cause and effect, a correlation, right? When you have gut issues, the chances of you having anxiety and depression skyrocket.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I mean, it's a two-way street. So GABA, an amino acid made by the biome, is one of the things that helps to counter the detrimental effects of stress, of cortisol on the brain. So it really is, they need each other to help balance that health.
Yeah. Now, there's a second part, Claire Bear has a second part of this question, and this really goes more into my expertise, which is the food piece of it. So I'm going to let Bill go if you need to check on the kids.
Okay. I'll go make sure
I don't know who's getting the short end here. Just make sure the house isn't burning down or anything.
Good luck.
Thank you so
nice
much.
To meet you. Okay.
I really appreciate it. You have to come back. That was fun.
I will.
Okay, it's just me now. Okay, so then the other part of that question was about the food. So she says, what's the single best food that you can eat to help with this when you're having the anxiety and depression, all that? What's the single best food? And so, I wish I could give you a single best, but I gotta give you a ton because there's so many foods. So what you want to focus on, this is probably not a surprise to you, what you want to focus on when you have Crohn's and colitis, because it's a whole body inflammation, right? So what you want to focus on are those anti-inflammatory foods. And what do I mean by that? I mean foods that are high in good fat and foods that are quality proteins. Those are the things you want to focus on for your diet because they're anti-inflammatory. I'm talking about things like the good fats, coconut oil, nut butters. And I know, Claire Bear, you said that you're a vegetarian, so I'm assuming you eat eggs. So to answer your question further, you could eat eggs as well. If you don't eat eggs, that's okay. Stay away from eggs. But those are some of those good fats. You also want to focus on high quality fruits and vegetables. This is going to be individual for everybody. But what I do find is that people with Crohn's and colitis, they tend to, again, I'm just speaking in generalizations here, they tend to tolerate the squash family. Butternut squash, spaghetti squash, acorn squash, and these would all be cooked. They're very high in vitamins and minerals, and they're also really easy for our gut to digest. So I want you to focus on well-cooked things like that. When we're in the middle of a flare, you want to avoid raw food because it's very difficult for our body to digest. When food is cooked, it's basically like pre-digested. So your body doesn't have to work so hard to digest it. So when something's already cooked, our body just has to work on absorbing. And that's the key issue that we have when we have Crohn's or colitis or other gut struggles. We cannot absorb the nutrients in our food. But when we cook them, it makes them that much easier to absorb. So things like squashes, those are going to be good carbohydrates for the body. And you also want to think about just some really simple things that are hard to do, but we all know, like limiting your refined sugar, getting away from processed foods. And when I work with clients, I actually talk about going gluten-free, which you probably have heard of, and grain-free. So gluten and grains, those are both highly inflammatory to the body. And so when we remove those, we can heal some of that inflammation. And that reminds me, actually, the last question that we really have time for, there were actually so many questions. I don't think that we have time for all of them. If your question did not get answered, I will definitely, if you want to leave it again in the comments below, or if you have a question, you're watching this in the replay and you have a question that we didn't answer, definitely pop it in there because I do go back and look at the comments. So you can definitely, if you have any other questions about this, anything gut related, really anything goes, I will go back and look at the comments after. But there was another question that was really similar to this one, so I want to answer them both together. I'm so bad at pronouncing. Emily B. So this question is from Emily B. And she says she's starting the biologics, right? We know all about the biologic drugs for Crohn's and colitis. Is there anything you can recommend to support my body and immune system while I start this new course of drugs? Okay, so that kind of goes along with the other question about foods to eat. When we're talking about supporting the immune system, we're talking about lowering your inflammation. When we lower our inflammation, we increase our immune system. So I'm talking about the same kinds of foods for both of you, for both Emily B and Claire Bear. I'm talking about both of you, those kinds of foods. And anybody, really, I'm not just talking to you two, I'm talking to anybody that wants to heal from Crohn's disease, colitis, significant chronic constipation or diarrhea. There is a breakdown in your gut. It's called leaky gut. And the thing we need to do to try and heal it is to quiet the inflammation. And it's by eating those anti-inflammatory foods like the ones I mentioned. Now, let me just back up a little bit here. I talked about some high quality fat right? So that would be things like eggs and nut butters. Avocados are amazing. Your coconut oil, things like that. Your high quality protein. And I know that one of you with the question is a vegetarian, so you want to think about your protein sources, but you could get some high quality protein from fermented soy if you're a vegetarian. If you do eat meat, you can get or fish, you can get high quality protein from lean meats like chicken and fish like salmon, mackerel, things like that. And then besides that, you want to talk about, just kind of recapping here, you want to think about limiting your refined sugar and your processed food as well. One other thing I want to mention that I think is really key to healing that inflammation is your fermented foods. And those are things like fermented yogurt. You know, on the specific carbohydrate diet as well as the GAPS diet, and you probably have heard of those because they're very big in the healing, the food type of therapies for Crohn's and colitis. So in the SCD and in the GAPS diet, this fermented homemade yogurt is really key, and it's because it puts the healthy bacteria in your gut. Now, if you are dairy free, you could do a coconut milk version, and if you want to stay away from that altogether, you could also just consume fermented vegetables. Kimchi, my personal favorite is sauerkraut. You can actually ferment other vegetables as well. You can pickle carrots and beets and things like that as well. All of these fermented foods are going to give your gut that wonderful, healthy bacteria that we need to clear out the gunk when we're dealing with these kinds of illnesses. And as I was talking, I was thinking of one other thing. Oh, I know. I thought of it. I wanted to tell you one other thing. The other absolute favorite thing that I love for gut healing and inflammation, apple cider vinegar. If you're not using this, you gotta get yourself using apple cider vinegar. You can use it in so many ways, but I'm gonna tell you my favorite way. My favorite way is as a morning concoction. I take room temperature water, and it's important that this water is not cold. You want it to be about the same temperature as your body when you're waking up. So room temperature water, 8 to 12 ounces, about a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, squeeze up some fresh lemon, not the lemon juice that you buy in the container, but a fresh lemon, a real lemon. And then you want to take, that really could be it, just those three things, the water, the lemon, and the apple cider vinegar. I add a couple other things to that. I add some crushed black pepper, as well as some turmeric, and that's hugely anti-inflammatory, especially for the small intestine. And I have Crohn's, so mine is mostly in the small intestine, so I add a little turmeric. And I want to say, oh, and honey. Some either local raw honey, or you could also add some Manuka honey, which is even better because it has even more enzymes than your regular raw honey. In fact, it's from... Hi, Stephanie, how are you? It's from New Zealand, so that's fabulous. That's my morning concoction drink. Okay, awesome. I think I answered all the questions. I hope that having my husband here was really helpful. If you weren't here in the beginning of the call, of the video, you gotta go back. You gotta listen to that first part where he joined us, because I think that some of that psychological knowledge that he has, I think it was really helpful. And I have to say again, I was really surprised by these questions here, by the amount of questions that were linked to psychological issues. You know, dealing with the embarrassment of using the bathroom, or talking to your significant other about all the poops that you're having, dealing with sleep and how to navigate that and help heal your gut and getting enough sleep, dealing with mood disorders like depression and anxiety. I didn't anticipate that with these questions, but it completely makes sense now that I think about it. It actually makes sense that there were so many questions like that. And I know that even though these questions came from one individual person, I know that they're going to help lots and lots of people, right? Because I know that if I have felt those things before as well, then I know that you're going to benefit from it too. So that's it for the questions that we have time for. I know, like I said, I know there were some more questions that I didn't get to. I will definitely message you personally if I didn't get to your question. You know, it's great to have the husband back and dealing with the kids, but you know, sometimes we need a mom too. And I got a 7-year-old and I'm wondering if he is in bed yet. So I got to take off. But before I go, we have to do our book giveaway. We did the Q&A. Now it's time for the book giveaway part. Okay, so like I said in the beginning, I have this little bag here. Everybody that asked a question, I popped it in here. Okay, I'm just going to pick this out at random. Okay. The winner of this book right here, Managing IBD, I'm going to message you so I can get your address deets and I will send this to you. The winner is Made by Leslie Renee. Woo woo! Yeah, yeah. Go girl, go girl, go girl. Made by Leslie Renee. You're the winner. You're the winner of this book right here. So that's the book giveaway part. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Leslie Renee, for submitting your question. I loved all of the questions, and thank you so much for yours. You're getting a copy of this book, girl. I am so happy for you. There it is. Okay, I got to wrap up this Gut Love Live session. It was a particularly long one, but these questions, these topics were juicy, and we had to get to as many as we could. Like I said, if I didn't get to your question, pop it in the comments below, and I promise you, I will get to those questions. I will answer them. If you want to stay connected with me, what's the best way to do that? Well, I'm a huge fan of Instagram as well as Facebook. I am there pretty much every day, and my handle there is @KarenHaley'sGutLove. So come and join me there. If you want to explore this further, if you're dealing with gut issues and you want to really get to the heart of it, I do offer free clarity sessions for moms to get to the heart of what's going on, to talk about some things that you can do to move forward. If you're interested in scheduling one of those with me, all you have to do is go over to my website and you can schedule it there. It's www.KarenHaley.com, and my mom had to be just a little bit different and spell my name with a Y. So Karen is Karyn and Haley is Haley. So that's KarenHaley.com. Pop on over there and you can, if you just scroll to the bottom, you can schedule a clarity session with me whenever it's convenient for you. And like I said, those sessions are free. It's just a great way to get to the bottom of, yeah, pun intended, get to the bottom of what's going on with your gut issues. All right, thank you so much. Thanks for those that joined today. It was so fun hanging out with you. I loved having my little co-host here, my husband. That was really fun. I think we need to have him back on again. I'm thinking that maybe a whole live session devoted to sleep would be really beneficial. I know it would really benefit me. Maybe it would benefit you too. So I'm going to think about finding some time to bring him back on. I'll be back here next week. I don't know if it'll be the same time. It might be a little bit earlier, but it'll definitely be the same day. All right? So watch on Facebook. It'll definitely give you the time. Thanks so much for joining me. And until if I could talk, right? Let me try that one more time. Until we meet again, I'm going to wish you much gut love and much happiness always. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye.